I wanted to organize the um, class today around a really simple phrase, a really simple piece of advice that you can, try to remember and take to heart. The phrase is "rely upon a happy mind alone." It doesn't sound like a heavy instruction, right? Rely upon a happy mind alone. But I'll explain what that means. And the essential meaning is that unhappy minds are not reliable, right? Like if your mind's a bit unhappy and squirmy, it's going to squirm around and try to find some way to make itself happy. So it's not exactly reliable. So, but I'll spell that out a bit more, what that means, how to use that instruction. And how that's useful in different contexts in our life. But what we can do is to start, as usual, just by resetting and doing a bit of meditation to clear our minds and to settle in this morning. So, as usual, we'll follow this 3-breath practice to get started. By just beginning by taking a deep breath in and out, just to reset. And then another breath, deep breath, just inviting ourselves to relax our body and mind. And then a third breath, asking ourselves, what is important right now? And then in this way, we may have begun to relax our body and mind, to settle in, and to bring our attention a little bit more inside. So we can continue this process, recognizing that initially our mind, our attention may be scattered everywhere. Think about the past and future and so forth. But we try to become aware of what is happening right now, just to ground ourselves in this present situation. And each breath we take is a useful way to bring ourselves back. And we begin to feel inside our body. Just asking ourselves, what can we feel in our body? Can we feel our face, our head, the feeling of our skin? And as we become aware of these areas, we can invite some relaxation. Can we feel our neck? Our shoulders? Can we relax our chest? Allow our chest to spread open, feel more comfortable. And down our arms, into our hands and fingers. We can feel down our back, our upper back, our diaphragm, and down into our lower back and belly. can feel down into our pelvis, often our face, our chest, our pelvis are places where we hold a lot of tension, emotional tension, and just allow ourselves to relax. And down into our legs. Often as our body relaxes, we can become more aware of the feeling in our legs, even down to our feet. Just ask yourself, what, if anything, can you feel throughout your body? Is there any areas of tension that we can release? And then with each breath, perhaps there's even some slight change in feeling throughout our body. And whereas our mind can easily wander off anywhere in the universe at any time, keep bringing our attention back to our body right now. Every breath is like a subtle reminder for us to return our attention. We know our mind can go anywhere. It's perfectly natural, but we are getting familiar with returning it, gaining control of our attention, like the steering wheel of our mind. Our attention guides where our energy goes. It's very important that our meditation not just be an exercise in attention and concentration, but also be a practice of developing a warm heart so we can bring to mind that for which we're grateful. All of the people, circumstances, even our own body and mind that have brought us to where we are right now, and without which we would not survive or exist. So we develop a feeling of gratitude for our parents, our family, our teachers, people who employ us or work with us, everyone who is in our circle of connection, directly or indirectly. Knowing there is a vast web of interdependency that supports us. And with this mind of gratitude, we can think in this brief session today, we have a chance to strengthen our mental habits, strengthen our wisdom, our good heart. And we develop a wish to use our time here to build the good qualities we need to be of service in our world. And with this motivation, we can open our eyes and arise from meditation. So, just a few preliminary thoughts before I share about relying upon a happy mind alone. As I mentioned this last week, our whole company has been doing these 4-hour blocks of webinars and so forth, going from one day to the next. And that probably is I think Zoom is the official sponsor of 2020. That sort of sponsor the whole year. It's like you can sponsor the Olympics. And people naturally have difficulty paying attention, I think, paying attention to most things. And our ability to pay attention to things, depends on a lot of factors, but mostly it depends on whether we find it valuable or not, interesting. Our mind always flits off to what we think is most interesting. And what's most interesting is a reflection of what's most valuable for us. So whether something's interesting or not implies whether there's some promise of value, some idea that there might be some value in this. Now, we can have a lot of things we find to be valuable, and so we can have a lot of things we're interested in, and we can have an active mind and a lot of external influences, and so our mind can move very quickly between a lot of things. But as I mentioned, attention, the traditional analogy of attention is that attention is like the reins of a horse. And that your intention means where you actually direct your mind, your mental energy, and so forth is like the horse itself. So I'm upgrading the analogy, and I'm saying that our attention is like the steering wheel on our car, and our intention is the vehicle itself. So the intention determines where you go, but of course the attention directs you. When I was reflecting back on the things that I've done over the last year, the things that I've done that were of more, just in the working world, the things that I've done that were of the greater value, of greater significance, were things where I really had to block out long periods of time and really try to concentrate to the best of my ability. And everything that I did in that vein took about 3 times longer than I thought it should. um, I think all people are terrible at estimating, but I feel like I'm perhaps unusually bad at estimating how long things will take. There's this perennial optimism. So to actually accomplish things really requires some sustained attention and sustained intention. And so one of the things we're doing in meditation is we're learning to get control of our attention, to be able to consciously and intentionally choose to block out certain distractions, to focus on things that are of more value to us, that we consciously decide are of more value. A couple of my teachers have shared recently that meditation on the body, a couple of analogies that were useful. I thought very beautiful analogies. One of them is if you're growing a tree and the tree is just a little sapling, in the beginning, you might need to put a stake in the ground and tie the tree to the stake, right? Because otherwise the tree could be blown over or grow off on a weird angle or something like that. So you put a stake in the ground while the tree is gaining strength and growing. Now, after the tree has gotten to a certain size, you no longer need the stake, right? You can then remove the stake and the tree doesn't need that support. So meditation on the body is a bit like that stake, that it helps us to come back to the present moment, helps us to become aware of whether we are or are not paying attention to, or whether we are or are not paying attention to our chosen object of focus. And so meditation on the body is very practical, right? We all have bodies. They are all breathing. There's a little bit of subtle change. It's not super easy to feel that breath and subtle feeling, but it's not that hard either. So it's pretty straightforward and it's pretty universal. And it's a great way to practice in the beginning. Now, when I say in the beginning, I don't know how long that is. Weeks, months, years, decades, potentially a long time. Traditionally, like meditators will spend a really long time just focusing on the body, and it's always there accessible to us. So it's always a really good way to start any meditation session. But realistically, meditation is just directing our mind to something that makes our mind more peaceful. And so the body is a great place to start. But you can also meditate on insights, realizations, like this idea to rely upon a happy mind alone. So I'll talk about that. You'll get some feeling for that. If you get some feeling for that and you want to stabilize it, then what you're doing is you're meditating on that. You're contemplating if you're thinking about it. And if you get some feeling and you just want to hold that, okay, I'm going to rely upon a happy mind alone. You get some feeling and you just want to hold that feeling, savor that feeling. That's meditation. Someone asked recently, what's the difference between contemplation and meditation? Contemplation is moving, a bit of thinking and so forth. And meditation is when you've found a conclusion, lingering with it and savoring it. And what happens, we don't tend to savor our insights. You know that experience where you have like an amazing insight? Maybe a personal insight, work insight, something that's amazing. Oh, that's it. I figured it all out, right? Have you ever had that same insight more than once? The only way you can have that insight more than once is if you've forgotten it. Oh, right. I need to always rely upon a happy mind alone. These things are a bit fleeting, right? These insights are a bit unstable. And so meditation to practice, the traditional word for meditation means literally stabilization or familiarization. It's a way of stabilizing insights, stabilizing understanding. And when it comes to, so if you're studying, if you're studying architecture, if you're learning some external discipline, of course, you've got some memorization, different architectural styles and principles and, engineering principles. And so there's some memorization, right? But what we're doing is we're dealing with topics on an emotional level that are quite deep, really, quite deep and internal to who we are and how we operate as a human being. And so we have to use a different kind of intelligence to stabilize that knowledge. Right? You can use flashcards to stabilize your intellectual knowledge, but this is kind of knowledge of the heart. And so the way to stabilize that knowledge is meditation, just allowing ourselves to linger on that experience, to savor it, to enjoy times where we're not engaging and stimulated externally, but just sort of abiding on a topic like relying upon a happy mind alone. Because in all cases, what we're doing is we're building a bit more conscious control over what we pay attention to. That's one level of what we're doing, building conscious control over what we pay attention to. But there is another deeper level, which is that our body is not just a convenient object of meditation. Our body actually holds knowledge in a sense. And that kind of transitions into this next topic of relying upon a happy mind alone. And I'm going to pair this meditation, like wines. There's good pairing suggestions. So I'm going to pair this topic of relying upon a happy mind alone with the topic of emotional manipulation, which is normally a bitter vegetable, right? But when well cooked, you can understand it. You can. I don't know. I'm going off on a terrible analogy here, right? But so emotional manipulation, that sounds a little bit dark and scary, but it's an interesting topic because it's an interesting topic. Like when we talk about emotions, like this language of the heart and how we embody feelings. So I mentioned during the meditation earlier that we can hold a lot of emotional energy in our chest, our pelvis, sometimes our stomach, our face, different parts of our body, our hands, whatever. When we're meditating on our body, what we're doing is we're also becoming aware of the state of our body and becoming aware of where there's some tension and allowing that tension to relax. And it's actually a therapeutic process where if we get under stress, like if somebody starts yelling at us, that is going to manifest in our body someplace, right? And there's going to be like, what's the posture that we take if somebody's like really upset with us? I would tend to go like this, like my head a bit bowed, my chest a bit caved in. Why is my chest a bit caved in? Presumably because the muscles are pulling in a little bit more tightly, right? And so I'm a little bit protecting my heart and protecting my heart, right? What am I? Am I an animal that's fighting, is going to get clawed? Are they clawing? They're clawing with their words, right? They're yelling at me, but I still have this sort of, okay. And we can carry that with us, right? So let's say the person leaves the room and they stop yelling at you and you walk out of the room, but maybe our posture is still a bit like this, right? Like maybe our posture is a bit like that week after week, year after year, month after month, since perhaps the time we were children, right? There's this there's these ways that our body can hold this energy. Last night, based on some, following one of these tangential threads, I looked up, as we do on the internet, about this topic of emotional manipulation. Like, what do people say about emotional manipulation? And I found this, article on Psychology Today, like you do, about 14 different types of emotional manipulation. Home court advantage, wanting to bring somebody, like wanting to make sure that people are meeting in your space, in your territory, so you have some control. Letting you speak first and listening so you can reveal your weaknesses so they can establish some advantage. Manipulating the facts, like just changing the facts a bit. And overwhelming you with facts and statistics. And overwhelming you with procedures and red tape and raising their voice and displaying negative emotions and negative surprises, like, oh, I've got this really bad news for you. It's not going to work, and giving you little or no time to decide. I need a decision right now. What are you going to do, right? Negative humor designed to poke at your weaknesses and disempower you, like, oh, nice headphones. What are they, from 1995? Whatever. The silly little things we do to tease people, like banter and so forth. Consistently judging and criticizing people to make you feel inadequate. The silent treatment, just not responding. Pretending ignorance. Oh, I didn't know that. Playing dumb. And guilt, making you feel guilty. Like, oh, you always do this to me. You never do this. Oh, if you were more responsible, you would do this and that. Victimhood, like, oh, everything's been so difficult. Nobody pays attention to me. Nobody listens to me. you know what? By the time I got to the end of that list, I'm like, well, is there anything that's not emotional manipulation? Isn't that like everything that people do with one another? Isn't like most interactions have like at least some touch of that, if not like dripping with that? Um, and I just thought, wow, okay, well, that's it's a slightly bigger topic than I was thinking, but it's the bright side, right, of emotional connection with one another is empathy, right? And the dark side, perhaps, I'm not sure if this is a perfect comparison, would be emotional manipulation, right? But we're influenced by each other all the time. And you can be influenced by one another, by another person in such a way that you can register their emotions, you can see what they're experiencing, and you can develop a wish, a benevolent wish to help them, free them from some problem, bring them some benefit in some way. Or you can see their emotions, you can register their emotions, and you can think, oh, I know how to make Eric do exactly what I want him to do. Every time I yell at him, he always goes off and does whatever I want him to do. So perfect. I know exactly what to do. And so this reading of other people's emotions, the topic that triggered this was hearing about how sociopaths and psychopaths can be very good at manipulating others' emotions. They can read them. They don't have they don't have sincere empathy, but they can still know others' emotions and manipulate them. Now, I'm not at all inferring that we're surrounded by sociopaths or psychopaths, but it's just there is this natural interaction, interplay that we have with one another, right? And work relationships, romantic relationships, friend relationships, relationships with your children, etc. All of these things, and parents, all of these things can be really characterized by, well, there's an emotional interplay. There's some practicality to our relationship. Who cooks the meal, who does the work, etc., who does the dishes. There's some practicality, but there's a lot of emotionality, right? Emotional interplay. So emotional manipulation basically is looking at somebody else and wanting something from them. And love and compassion, these positive emotions that come from empathy, are looking at another person and wanting something for them. The energy is very simply opposite. Emotional manipulation is like, I need this, I need that, I need you to do this, I need you to be like that, I need this. Love and compassion is, I can help in this way. How can I help you? How can I be of service? How can I, what's needed here? How can we fix this? How can we work together, right? Literally, the direction is opposite. It's moving out to benefit versus trying to pull in. And so bringing this back to this very simple instruction, rely upon a happy mind alone. What's interesting is that the more unhappy we are, the more, well, for us to be manipulated, on some level or another, we have to feel unhappy or afraid or weak or powerless or needy on some level. So I'll just tell you here, if you want to emotionally manipulate me, make me think I'm a bad person. Like, that's the thing that I'm really susceptible to. Like, I've tried really hard my whole life to be a good person. If you tell me, oh, you're actually, when you do this, that's just so self-centered. I'm like, oh no, I didn't mean to do that. So it can create, and so the reason that arises for me is this fear of, like, this belief that there's a lot of bad people out there, and this fear not wanting to be like those bad people out there, and realizing that there's this vulnerability or this susceptibility, because these seeds of self-centeredness and evil and so forth exist within my own mind, the same as they exist in everybody's mind. So not invulnerable to evil, not invulnerable to self-centeredness. I'm like, oh no, it's coming out, right? This inner demon. But if we're simply happy, right? If we're simply peaceful, we cannot be manipulated, right? We cannot be, because there's nothing that we need. We are at ease and we are comfortable. So to take the example of a romantic relationship, so, there's always this threat, oh, are they gonna saying we're a bad person? Are they gonna leave? Are they gonna, um, uh, whatever is the variation. But if we are simply at peace, if we are relaxed, if we're comfortable being on our own, for example, then there's nothing that can be taken away from us. If we're here, for example, in a relationship to serve, to be of benefit, to be of benefit to others, then we're peaceful. And basically, in a sense, we can't be harmed, right? If we are in a company within like a neediness and a clingingness to like needing money, needing benefit, needing reputation, needing status, then there's a desperation there. We're always going to be in a position of like clinging. And so we'll always be kind of, well, there'll be a tendency for us perhaps to manipulate the people around us, but also it indicates that we are easily manipulable, right? We can be, if we're needy, we're going to try to get stuff from the people around us. But as well, because we're afraid of losing something, we will be quite easy to manipulate. Somebody could yell at us and, learn how to work with us in such a way to get us to do whatever they want. It's very different from the energy of coming to a job or coming to a relationship from a place of peace, relaxation, happiness, strength, comfort, and saying, I'm here to serve, I'm here to benefit. How can I be of help in this conversation? How can I be of help in this relationship? How can I be? And so the problem is, the reason we can, and I really do want you to memorize this phrase, rely upon a happy mind alone. And this can be a mantra. And mantra is another one of these sort of tricks that you can just run through your head to bring your attention back to something that's more useful. So when you're unhappy, what happens when you're unhappy? Well, you immediately want to not be unhappy. That's what happens. You immediately want to not be unhappy. So how do you not be unhappy? You try to figure out what's making you unhappy. There's one of two things that are making you unhappy. Either you don't have something that you think would make you happy, or there's something in your environment that you feel is making you unhappy. If there's some unhappiness, there's our mind immediately looks to one of two causes. Either we're missing something that we need to make ourselves happy, or there's something in our world that is making us unhappy. And there actually is a third one, which is we have lost something that we needed and loved. So if we we used to have, we used to have status, we used to have a partner, we used to have this friend, whatever, and now we don't. And so that's why either something positive, pleasant, we had something pleasant and it's gone now. We want something pleasant that we don't yet have, or there's something unpleasant around us. Just lingering on that last one for a moment. If you're unhappy and you're living in a small confined space with another person, it is very natural to think that person is quite possibly the reason I'm unhappy. Just thinking about possible causes of unhappiness, you might be one, right? And so we tend to blame our unhappiness on the people that we're around, right? Oh, our boss or a partner or whatever. And that's where anger comes from, right? Or we look at somebody who has something that we want, and that's where jealousy comes from. Or we want something, we have some attachment, some craving, clinging, right? Or we have grief and a sense of sadness and loss because of something that's gone away. And so this advice, rely upon a happy mind alone, is really meant to be a cautionary advice, to notice that when you do become unhappy, just watch out, right? Because it's an unreliable mind. It's going to deceive you. It's going to tell you something that's not true. It's going to tell you that this person living in the same space with you is to blame, or your boss is to blame, or your coworkers to blame, or the customers to blame, whatever. It's going to tell you that you need something that you don't have right now. And it's going to remind you that you need to return to a happy mind. And one way to return to a happy mind is just to return to a peaceful mind. Meditation is a very important and powerful way of doing that, sort of restoring, regaining our inner peace and happiness. So that's how I'm just bringing these threads together, the emotional manipulation and relying on a happy mind alone. So that was what I wanted to share. But what we can do is to take a few minutes just to let that sink in, let that settle in, and perhaps we can just meditate on that advice, just noticing what circumstances does that bring to mind for us, of where do we need, where are in our life are we vulnerable to manipulation or delusions or whatever because of lacking a happy mind. So contemplate that for a bit. So let's return briefly to meditation, just taking a deep breath in and out to reset. And another deep breath in and out just to relax. And we can contemplate these words: always rely upon a happy mind alone. And we can think, if we have a happy mind, how would we behave? How would we hold ourselves? How would we interact with others? If we don't have a happy mind, what tends to happen? How do we tend to act? How readily can we be manipulated? And then we can repeat inwardly, always rely upon a happy mind alone, and just concentrate on whatever feeling or thought this generates for us. And for the last few moments, we can think through this brief time together here. We have strengthened beneficial habits and tendencies of mind. We have trained our attention. We have trained our good heart. We have increased our wisdom. And all of these are small seeds that strengthen habits in our mind. We can think, how would we ideally like for these seeds to unfold? The habits we've strengthened here, how would we like this to unfold in our life for ourselves and others? What kind of a world would we like to create from this? And then we can open our eyes and arise from our meditation.